So today I am going to talk to you about essential analytics to turbocharge your CRO. So who am I? I'm Krista Seiden, the analytics advocate at Google. And that means that I get to travel around the world to teach and train and speak at conferences and meet with lots of clients to hear what's going right, what's going wrong, and how can I take that feedback back to our teams to improve our products going forward. Prior to this role, however, I actually spent many, many years as a practitioner in various companies running analytics and optimization programs. So I know the industry across different tools. I used to work at Adobe and various other companies, and I've used the products a lot. So all of the things that I will talk about today actually come from my own experience as an analyst using our products. I tweet at Krista Seiden, and I have a blog, kristaseiden.com, where I blog a lot about analytics and optimization if you feel like you need even more of that after this event. All right, so I'm going to talk about a few things today. First, I'm going to talk about what is analysis to drive CRO. Then I'm going to give you 5 tips for accelerating your CRO programs using analytics. I'm going to give you a bonus tip that I like to call a rapid optimization plan. And finally, we're going to end with what we see as the future of testing, adapting, and personalizing. All right, so what is analysis to drive CRO? I think that starts with the definition. So the definition of optimization is the ongoing data-driven process of continually discovering and quantifying the most effective experience for both your both online and offline for your consumers and customers. But I think the 2 words there that are really important are data-driven. And then there's what is testing versus analysis. This depends on the question that you're looking to answer. So if you want to know which layout works best, you're probably going to answer that with a test. But if you want to know what piece of content on your website is the most popular, that's probably better answered with analysis. But they do go hand in hand, and analysis can and should be used to justify high-value tests. So when we think about conversion rate optimization, I like to break it down into 3 pillars. So the first is developing ideas. So we have analytics to help us search for those areas that need optimization, that might be low performing on our websites. Once we have those ideas, we can experiment. So we can conduct A/B and multivariate tests using different testing platforms to help answer the questions that came up when we were developing ideas. And then finally, we'll refine. So we'll analyze those tests. We'll use that information to help us come up with more tests, and we'll repeat the cycle all over again. So there are many factors that can contribute to low conversion rate. So these are just a few of them. First is user experience. So is your page slow loading? Or are users having trouble navigating around your website or finding the information that they want? If that's true, they are more likely going to leave without making it to your conversion goal. Next is site content and personalization. So is the site really speaking to them? Do they feel like the message is on key? If it's not, they might leave faster than you would like them to. Third is actionable web analytics. So many of us are using analytics tools, hopefully Google Analytics. But regardless, many people have analytics on their pages. They're collecting a lot of data, and they're taking that data and grabbing a few metrics out of it, putting it in a dashboard, giving it to a CMO or a key stakeholder once a month, and that's about all they ever do with their analytics. That's not actionable. We want to use that data, that information, to find those areas that are not performing well, to find those areas that we can optimize further. We want to use that data to really drive insight and impact. And then the last area here that I pointed out is development resources. So in my time as a practitioner running optimization programs, this was definitely the biggest hurdle for me. Way back then, a couple years back, before we had Google Optimize, we had content experiments. Many of you may share in my frustration here that with content experiments, you had to have a developer and developer resources to create an additional version of your website for the changes that you wanted to make and serve those side by side. which meant you had to have those developer resources on hand to be able to do that at any time. I know that I always struggled to justify that to our teams when they are trying to prioritize all of the big projects that they have in a quarter. And my measly little test oftentimes didn't make their roadmap. And that was a real struggle for me. All right, so now I want to tell you about several tips that I have for using data to really drive your analysis or to really drive your CRO efforts. And first, that comes with implementation. So to start off implementation, I want to talk about campaign tagging. First is email testing. If you are doing a lot of testing via email, or even if you're not, if you're sending email, you should be attaching UTM parameters to each and every CTA in that email so that when people come from that email to your website, you will know exactly which email version, which headline of email, all of the information that you throw into those UTM parameters, you'll know that in analytics because you're tracking it from those clicks in the email to your website. Those UTM parameters can then be used, especially the UTM content parameter, can be used to judge one email version versus another, one CTA versus another. And that's a way of testing, really, if you're split testing those email sends, right? So you can understand if one email is working better than another by properly tagging it. Another in the same thinking is ad testing. I really like to use the UTM content field when I'm serving a lot of ads to distinguish the headline of the ad that I'm testing. So let's say I have a few different headlines in market, and I want to see which one is performing best. I can put that actual headline in the UTM content field, and when people come from that ad to my website, I can then compare across all my conversion goals, which headline is driving the most traffic or the most highly converting traffic. A note, if you're using auto tagging, which you should, you can override whatever UTM parameters that you want. So you can still send the UTM content parameter even if you're using auto tagging. So finally, the last one I have here is social media. So you should be using UTM parameters on all of your different social media efforts. I think this one is especially important for anybody in here who might be a brand marketer or somebody doing a lot of social media. So you should be tagging each of those different social platforms with different UTM parameters. And if you're using, especially if you're using short links, which I think most people doing social media do, each short link should be shortened from a different URL, noting the UTM parameter for Twitter or for Facebook or for Google+. This allows you to do a lot more in-depth analysis about which type of social post on which platform at which time of day is performing best for you. So an example here, this is from my own blog. I blog a lot about Google Tag Manager and about analytics. And when I blog about Google Tag Manager, I've noticed a trend over time where I actually get a lot more traffic coming from Google+ than I do from Twitter. But when I blog about Google Analytics, it's the opposite. I get a lot of traffic coming from Twitter and not as much from Google+. The reason being, there's a large Google Tag Manager community on Google+ that's very active. So when I blog about Google Tag Manager, I've never blogged about Google+. Who would do that? When I blog about Google Tag Manager, that blog tends to get shared more in that GTM community in Google+, and I get more traffic from there. But that's an insight that I wouldn't have known if I didn't actually tag all of my social posts individually with that level of detail. The next is using the data layer to collect an experiment ID. So before my time as the advocate for Google Analytics, I worked in the Google for Work group at Google. We sold Google Apps, Gmail, Docs, Drive to businesses who wanted to use those for their business. And we had a website that I ran all of the analytics and optimization for. And our main goal of this website was to get people to sign up for a trial of Google Apps for Business. This is, again, back in the content experiment days. And that platform wasn't really working out for me due to those development resource limitations I talked about. We actually ended up building our own internal testing tool that allowed us to serve a lot more variations. And what we did was with every variation that we would serve, we added an EID in the data layer on the page. Here it's just index.html. This is my control. But every test variation would get a test number. It would be something long like 6800582 or something like that. We'd also send a test name, the name of the experiment, in two different elements in the data layer, and we'd send those to Google Analytics as custom dimensions. That allowed me then to analyze all of my different website metrics based on whatever version of the website that people saw. So implementing for your analytics insights when you're doing optimization efforts is really, really important. This is just kind of breaking down what I just told you about that EID. So you can see right here, 6800 whatever, that was the test EID. Next to it is actually the name of the test that we were running. Contact us versus talk to an expert. That was the name of the test. We concatenated those two different variables into one custom dimension here and sent this to Google Analytics. This is a custom report in Google Analytics that I've now had this one custom dimension across all of my goals for this test. So here I can now look at every test and each version within that test and how each version is performing across all of the goals that I care about for my business. Really, really powerful report to see everything in one place that I wanted to see. So next I want to talk about analytics goals to help you track your CRO success. So goals are very, very important in Google Analytics, and I think they're very underused. So if you're not using goals, hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll take away that you should use goals. One of the reasons I love goals so much is because they allow you to use goal funnels. So this is a goal funnel set up in Google Analytics, and this is looking at the data from the Google Apps for Business website. We had a 3-step sign-up flow to sign up for a trial of Google Apps for Business. And we had this funnel set up to look at everybody coming to step 1 all the way through signing up. What I see here immediately is that I have a huge drop-off between steps 1 and 2, right? The majority of my traffic is dropping off between those steps. And I actually see that the majority of that traffic is just exiting. That's a problem. So we did some more analysis on why that might be when people went from our website into our sign-up flow. And what we found was that people's expectations weren't being met. They thought that they were going to get one thing when they went into that sign-up flow, and then they got a page that was pretty dry with not a lot of information, asking them to give us a lot of information, and it just didn't really meet that expectation. And so people would drop. So we went through a lot of testing efforts to actually improve that, added a lot more information to that first page of the sign-up flow. And we found some good benefits in terms of improving the follow-through to step 2 and 3 of that sign-up flow. So goals and goal funnels in particular are great to help you pinpoint areas that you should be looking into further. This is that same report from earlier, but here I just wanted to point out that these are all goals. These are goals that I have set up in Google Analytics, and they're not just for my macro conversion of signing up for a trial. They're also for micro conversions of going from each step. And that way, in a report like this, I can track how each different variation is performing for step 1, for step 2, for step 3 in particular. And then I also have that macro conversion of signing up for a trial of Google Apps for Business. So this is the Next Web. They are a 360 client, and they are doing a lot of testing. They were on our Optimized 360 beta. They're going to start using it going forward as well. So they were doing a lot of testing, and these are the goals that they have set up in Google Analytics. They're a publisher, so you can see they're very publisher-specific goals. Did somebody make it to 2 pages deep in my website, or 3 pages deep, or did they scroll through 100% of the website? And the reason I bring this up is because the goals that you have set up in Google Analytics are the same goals that are going to be your experiment objectives in Google Optimize. So these are the objectives that they had set up in one of their tests in Optimize. And you can see that they exactly map to the goals that they have set up in Google Analytics because they are the same. When you're setting up a test in Optimize, you just choose the Google Analytics goal that you want. Therefore, you're optimizing to the things that you've already decided are the most important things for your website and for your business. Similarly, this is my blog, and I was doing some testing on this subscribe via email box here. I was moving it around and changing the text in there. And these are the goals that I have set up on my website. And as you can see, they also map to the goals that I have set up in Optimize, because again, it's the same goals. They equal your business objectives in Optimize and in Google Analytics. Okay. My next tip is that your site can actually tell you what is important. So pay attention to the data that you're getting from your site. So this is a site search report. Has anybody here used site search before? A few people. If you have a search box on your website, this is a very easy thing to enable. It's actually just a toggle and a specification of what the query parameter might be. So what it does, though, is it collects the actual query that somebody will enter into that search box on your website. So this is for my blog. And what I see here is that a lot of people are actually searching on my blog for Google Tag Manager or GTM or some version of that. So people are coming to my website looking for information on Tag Manager. And as a blogger, as somebody who's constantly trying to create more content, I'm going to use that information to say, I should probably blog more about Google Tag Manager, because clearly that's what people are coming here for. It's a great way to figure out if there are things that are lacking on your website. If you see a lot of searches for a specific term or a product, and you don't have that front and center on your website, maybe people are telling you through the search box that the user experience isn't great, and that you should try to move things around or make certain elements a little bit more discoverable on your website. So that's insight that you can get from the site search term report. This is a heat map. Actually, this is a confetti view heat map, not in Google Analytics. This is Crazy Egg. Anybody here use Crazy Egg? Yeah, this is one of my favorite tools outside of analytics. And the reason I like it so much is because it can tell you a lot of different things about the actions that people are trying to take on your website. So before I worked for Google, I worked for this company called the Apollo Group. And we spent a lot of time and effort building a career portal for our students. And when we launched this career portal, we had 3 key objectives on the website. And there were 3 boxes of information that we wanted people to interact with, click on, go through those different areas. So what we saw in Google Analytics is that we had a lot of traffic coming to this website. That was great. We really wanted people to use these resources. But we didn't have a lot of people actually clicking through and engaging with our key resources that we had front and center. And that was disappointing. We didn't really understand why, if we had so much traffic, they weren't clicking on the most visible things on the website. So we thought, perhaps there's an issue here. Let's throw up a Crazy Egg experiment and double check this. Let's see. So what we found actually was using the confetti report, we were able to see that people were in fact clicking on the pictures that were available for each of the different resources that we had. Because Crazy Egg will actually collect the click, not just on a clickable link, but any click on the website. And what that told us was, oops, our pictures weren't clickable. People were clicking them, thinking they were going to get to those resources. They weren't actually able to get to those resources, and only very few people actually looked down below and saw that little link that was in the text. So we quickly made that change, and we saw a nice uplift in people actually engaging with that content that we wanted them to. But that's an insight that we wouldn't have known if we hadn't used Crazy Egg or some kind of a tool to really figure out what people were trying to engage with. My favorite report within Crazy Egg actually is so these are all of the different things that you can choose for the confetti view. I really like the time to click, this one right here. So basically, it will have all these different color little dots that will tell you how long before somebody clicked on something. Did they click within the first 1 or 2 seconds? Or did they wait 60 seconds or 120 seconds to click on something? So I actually used that to do an analysis on a social network that we had to divide our user base into people who didn't really know what they wanted to do and were kind of just clicking to click and weren't really actually engaging with us, and people who were actually engaging with the content that we wanted them to. So really cool report. All right, now let's head back into Google Analytics and look at some of the key reports that you should focus on in GA to help you find places to optimize. So this is a devices report. Is everybody familiar with the devices report? It breaks down your traffic by how they're getting to your website. Did they come from desktop or mobile or a tablet? That's cool, but what I find most actionable about this report is that you can see here, you can choose the conversion that you want. So here I'm looking at the conversion goal of trial signup complete. And I can see that for desktop, it's about 1%, does pretty well for their signup process. But mobile and tablet were falling very short. What we took away from that, and what we already knew, but the data confirmed, was that our mobile signup flow was not optimized for mobile. And people had a really, really hard time getting through that flow on a mobile device. So we used that data to help confirm that to our stakeholders, that we really needed to put some more emphasis and development resources towards making a more mobile optimized signup flow. So this is the browser report. This is cool because you can see all of your traffic broken down by what type of browser they're using. So Chrome was our most popular browser coming to our website by a lot, but second most popular was Internet Explorer. I think all these people are really old or work for the government or something. But again, you can see all of these browsers by your conversion goals. So here we're still looking at our trial signup complete goal. And we can see that even though the average is 0.92%, Internet Explorer falls very, very short. If you click on the browser that you're interested in, you'll actually get to the browser version report. So if I click on Internet Explorer, I can then see that there are a whole lot of people still trying to access our signup flow from Internet Explorer version 8. I happen to know that we stopped supporting Internet Explorer version 8 a while back. And yet, so many people are still trying to go through our flow. So perhaps I should tell our teams that we might want to consider not shutting off support for that version so quickly, because it is causing trouble for a significant number of users who are trying to interact with us. So I already talked about the site search report, but here I've done something a little bit different. So I used that search term metric, and I pulled it into a custom report looking at it across all of my different goal steps. So here I have step 1, 2, 3 in signing up for my trial. Now I can see which key terms are most interesting to people going through trial and going through each phase. And I can see if there's one particular term that people are searching for a lot, they're really interested in, and they're either converting or not, but that can let me know that perhaps my marketing materials or something should focus more on that product, because that product ends up being a high driver of signups. So I mentioned this earlier, using fallout funnels to identify places that you can optimize. I just wanted to bring it up again, though, as a report in GA to focus on. Very, very valuable report to find areas that really do need some more emphasis and more optimization. Okay, so a few other reports in GA to pay attention to. So you want to look for high traffic, high bounce rate landing pages, and then you can segment these to find out if the performance varies by different demographics or by browser or device like we looked at. Also custom funnels. If you are a GA360 client, you will have a report called Custom Funnels. Very, very powerful report, kind of like the Goal Funnels report, but it doesn't have to be set up ahead of time. You can do it on the fly and find different segments that need optimization or have high fallout. So that's a very good report to pay attention to. Okay, my last tip in this section is to use qualitative surveys as CRO tiebreakers. So we actually just last week announced that we are bringing Google Consumer Surveys into our Google Analytics 360 suite. Very exciting. We're going to put more emphasis and more focus on having this qualitative data as part of your whole analytics solution. So I like it because it can give you a lot of powerful voice of customer feedback. So one thing that I do when I launch big tests, think website redesigns, is I will put a Google Consumer Survey on both versions, on the old version and the new version. And then when I look at the data for that test, I also look at the qualitative feedback. And I ask things such as satisfaction. Were you able to find what you were looking for? How was the experience? How satisfied were you? What was your main reason for visiting? And that information can really help if you have ties or very close results in those big tests. And I'll show you an example in a little bit of how that actually did help me. You can also use surveys to understand your audience makeup. I, every once in a while, like to run a survey where I'll ask what they're there for, or what type of function that they have. Are they a developer or an analyst or a marketer? And it helps me to justify the messaging that I have on my website by knowing who is coming and who I'm talking to. Okay. So now my bonus tip, the rapid optimization plan. So September 24th, 2012, I started at Google in the Google Apps for Business, or the Google Enterprise Group. And this is what their website looked like at the time. I came in to run the analytics for this and also to optimize it. Not that difficult of a job because, as you can probably see, there are a lot of areas that you could optimize this website. Exactly 2 years later, September 24th, 2014, I left that team, and this is what the website looked like. So it's pretty different, right? We went from there to there in 2 years. So how did we do that? Well, we tested a lot. So we ran 453 unique variations in 159 unique tests in 25 different locales across 4 different product lines. And all of that, I took away over 50 key learnings that we then used to help build that new website. So all of this information that we learned from all of these different tests that we ran actually went into designing that new website. So what did we test when we were doing that? A lot. We tested CTAs. We tested CTAs a lot, in fact. And we retested CTAs almost every quarter after we made any type of a major change to ensure that the CTA that we were using was still the appropriate one for the business, was still the highest performing one based on the changes that we had just made. We also tested headlines. I have a fun story about this one. So we used to have this headline that said, "Discover a better way of working." Marketing loved this headline. They thought it was a holistic story about a suite of products that we were trying to sell to the market. It wasn't just Gmail, it was Google Drive and Google Docs and Hangouts, and it was this whole better way of working. Engineering came to us and they said, well, that's a load of crap. We happen to know that 80% of people who sign up for Google Apps for Business only ever use Gmail. They don't touch the other products. Exactly, right? So they said, let's get rid of this stupid headline and let's have something a little bit more direct. So we ended up testing a bunch of more direct headlines. Engineering really, really liked this one, "Get email for your domain." Marketing, as you can imagine, did not like that one so much. But marketing really didn't take engineering so seriously in this case. I was kind of in the middle of this as the one running these tests. And marketing was like, whatever, go ahead, test it. Let's prove them wrong. How do you think that one worked out? 2 weeks later, we ran all of our tests for 2 weeks. So 2 weeks later, I happened to be on a business trip halfway across the world, and I was trying to go to bed. It was, I don't know, 10 or 11 p.m. Where I was. Actually, I think I was in Australia at the time. And I start getting frantic pings from my director of marketing. And I was like, what is she pinging me about? And she's like, don't launch it, don't launch it. And I was like, Then I start getting frantic pings from the VP of engineering. And his weren't so nice. They were along the lines of, you better launch my winning headline or we're going to stop supporting that testing platform that we helped you build. So after some mediation between the two groups late at night when I'm trying to sleep, what we came up with was we were going to go ahead and launch it because we didn't want to lose support for our testing program begrudgingly. We launched it, or I wasn't so begrudgingly for me, but for marketing. But then what I did for the next 3 hours of my night was create a couple of follow-up test plans and then code them up with my engineering team to immediately launch them to try to get back to a more marketing-friendly version of promoting Gmail as that top headline. So we launched Get Email for Your Domain, but a few weeks later, what we ended up with was get Gmail for your business as the top line headline with some text below that said, and Docs Drive, Hangouts, and more, or something like that. So moral to that story is twofold. One, you can get really, really good ideas from many different areas of the organization, including engineering. But two, you should make sure that everybody is signing off on that test before you're launching it. Otherwise, it's going to cause you a lot of problems down the road. But all that is to say, we tested a lot of things, including headlines. We also tested imagery. So we used to have this cartoony little thing on our banner, and we wanted to see if stock photography or real-life photography, or actually these were customers, pictures of people, did better. So we tested that. We also tested timely different images. So this was during the World Cup in Brazil. So we ended up testing images of a soccer ball or a stadium. What we found from that one was, in fact, when we did have timely messages out in market, we did see an increase in our trial signups. And that is really just understanding the local market and reaching them to things that they find relevant. We also tested our pricing page. It used to be this really ugly matrix that was hard to understand and read. We simplified it to something that had some pictures and a little bit less text, and we found a nice new pricing page that really worked well for us. We also tested demos. This one was really interesting. We had a lot of fighting in our team about what was the appropriate weight of a demo. Should it be something that people would just click through and see a few images and a word description of what would happen in these different products? Should it be something a little bit heavier where they could interact with it a little bit and see a little bit of customized output from that, like a Gmail address? Or should it be a full-on sandbox experience? And so we tested these different demos, and we tested them at different stages in the sign-up process. And what we ended up finding was that on our marketing website, when somebody is just coming and just discovering, the lightweight demo was appropriate. They didn't need anything more than that. Anything more than that scared them off. But if they had already signed up for a trial of Google Apps for Business and they weren't using it fully, if we sent them some reminders and sent them a sandbox environment to play around with some suggestions, that actually really helped to get people to convert from trial to a paid subscription. So after all of this, we had these two versions of our website. On the left, after a year and a half of testing, we had a very optimized version of that old website. And on the right, we had all of those learnings built into a new website. So you can see the headlines are the same. Get email for your domain and for your business. That must be slightly old. Should have said business. Same CTAs, get started. But a lot of the things that we had learned along the way were incorporated into this new version of the website. Also, a lot of the tests that we ran along the way were not actually to optimize the old version of the website, but they were to test learnings for the new version, such as if we went from 5 elements in our navigation to 4, would we lose people, or would people understand that we were combining resources and support into one area? So which one do you think won? Crickets. Come on, guys. The new one. All right, so I would like to say the one on the right, because we spent about 2 years trying to get to that. That's not actually what happened. So before we even tested this, we sat down as a team and we agreed on what was going to be our success metrics. I think it's a very, very important step when you're going to launch a big test like this. And so we agreed, based on a lot of research and digging in our data, that we needed to see at least a 5% increase in trial signups from the website if we were going to go ahead and launch this right away. And I say that because we had a 30-day trial, and we didn't necessarily want to wait 30 days to launch this new website. And we knew, based on historical data, that if we were at least 5% higher in trial signups, our conversions to paid would be at least flat, but more likely positive. So we felt comfortable with that number as an organization. And if we didn't hit that 5% number, we were going to continue to test and optimize until we got to a point where that new site was ready to launch. So fast forward, after 2 weeks of data, that's actually what happened. The new site was probably 0.7% worse performing than the old site. And we launched what I called a rapid optimization plan. So basically that meant I went into Google Analytics and dug for hours to find a few key areas that were underperforming. What we found was first, this button here, this blue button. It just wasn't getting the eyes that we wanted it to get. We had so many debates about getting rid of the green color. Marketing hated it, but it performed really well for us. One thing people will say in the CRO business or in the optimization field is that you shouldn't test button color, it's silly. I will stand here and tell you all day long that that is the most impactful test I've ever ran in my life. So we tested button color. We also tested a few other things. We had a get started button at the very bottom of the page, and on the new version, it was getting 0 clicks. And what we found was that was because marketing had decided they wanted to delight the customer by having a slow appearing imagery going down as you scroll down the page. But in practice, somebody comes to a website, they scroll really quickly, and they see nothing on the bottom of the page because it hasn't appeared yet. They're not going to hit get started at the bottom of that page. So we made that static. And then we changed a few things about our pricing page. And we ran all these tests. And after 2 weeks, we found that the numbers were still semi-flat, slightly more positive. But what we also did was we ran GCS surveys on both versions of this website. And we asked people if they were able to find the information that they were looking for, if they were satisfied with their visit, a bunch of questions really to understand if users liked the new site better than the old site. And that was actually not close at all. The results from that were overwhelmingly that the new website was easier for users to navigate, that they were able to find the information that they wanted more, and they felt like they got what they were looking for at a much higher rate. So we paired those two pieces of information together, that we were pretty flat on trials and that people liked the new site more, and we went ahead and launched that new site. So I wrote all this up in a blog post. If you want more information about it, there's a short link there to find out more about the rapid optimization plan. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk to you today is about the future of testing, adapting, and personalizing as we here at Google see it. So in an offline world, when you walk into a store, the store clerk or the manager, or whoever it is that you're interacting with, can pick up on body language or subtle cues that you're giving them, and they can change that experience based on that information. They can help you find a product or ask you how you're doing because they can see or read you, right? In an online world, that's not so easy. We don't have those visual cues, but we do have analytics. And analytics will help us to slice and dice these customers into different groups. So we can know that they have similar demographics, they're from a certain location, or that they are doing certain things on our website. And we can start to build different segments or different audiences based on this information that we have in analytics. But even though we know all that, a lot of the time, we are still serving them the same website experience. So if we know all of this unique information about them, why are we doing this? So we actually surveyed a lot of people as we were building Optimize. And one of the things that we heard a lot of was that it was really difficult to get information from an analytics tool to a testing tool, and from a testing tool back to an analytics tool. And that's why they weren't able to bridge that gap of serving a more personalized experience to people that they already knew data about. So when we built Optimize 360, our goal was to build a better way to test and deliver personalized experiences to each of your customers. So I think there are 3 pillars to Optimize. First is testing. We built an easy-to-use editor, a WYSIWYG editor, if you've heard that term before. Allows you to click to edit, drag and drop, really quickly make changes and create variations. Second is the adapt pillar, and this is all about smart data. We have a very, very robust Bayesian statistical model that's working behind the scenes, but in the interface, we are surfacing easy to read, easy to digest reports to you to tell you which variation has the highest probability to be the best. And then finally, personalization. So we have really, really strong integrations with Analytics 360, I mentioned earlier goals. You use the goals that you have in Google Analytics as your business objectives in Optimize. Also, audiences. So the segments that you build in Google Analytics can be used as audiences to target a test in Google Optimize 360. So I want to show you a little bit more about that. So let's say, for example, that you are a travel brand, an airline, and you have a lot of people coming to your website every day and they're searching for different things. But you have analytics and you know that there are a certain subset who are very often searching for first class or business class trips. And you have another subset that are really only searching for sales and very budget economy tickets. So you can create segments or audiences, one for your luxury travelers and one for your budget travelers. And now when they come to your website, you can use Optimize to serve them a personalized experience rather than the one message to all website that you had before. When a luxury traveler comes to your website, you can serve them up information about the latest business class or first class deal to some really nice island where they can stay at the Ritz-Carlton. Likewise, you can serve your budget travelers information about some great quick deal getaways and some budget hotels. And that's going to really talk to those customers at a more personal level. They're going to know that you know that information about them, and they're going to be more likely to engage with you, interact, and convert. So another use case we have here is for an online retailer. So let's say that you want to reach out to people who you know are coming to your website often and spending a lot of time on your website, but they haven't converted yet. Maybe they just need a little push. You'd like to serve them a personalized message. So here I've built a segment in Google Analytics, and this says that the sessions is greater than or equal to 3, and that the session duration is greater than or equal to 500 milliseconds. So these are people who come often and dwell for a while. Now I'm going to use this information as an audience in Optimize 360, and anybody who qualifies for this audience, I'm going to go ahead and serve them a special incentive offer on my website. I'm going to offer them free shipping if they check out today. So this is information that you have about your users, that they like you, that they're coming often, that you can then use to help push them into those conversions that you really want to drive. So a really quick demo for you guys. So this is the Serene Sierras. It's a fictional outdoor gears website. And when somebody comes to this website, we actually know that there's a subset of people who are coming to this website, and they're very interested in this Adirondack chair. They click on this chair and they go to this chair page often, let's say at least 3 times, but they are not adding to cart. So they haven't bought this chair yet. They go back to the homepage and they still see this same homepage. But we know information about them now, right? We know that they are interested in this chair. So why don't we use that information to serve them a different experience? So I'm a big fan of subtle messaging. So here, when they come back, they just see life's busy. But I'm going to go ahead and load this page up into the Optimize editor, and I'm going to add one sentence. Life's busy, take a seat. Little subtle reminder that they might want to actually buy that chair. So then in Optimize, I'm going to set my experiment objectives. And again, these are the goals that I have set up in Google Analytics. So shout it out. What would my objective on this page be? Add to cart. Yes, hit that big green button. OK, so in Google Analytics, I'm going to go ahead and add that as my primary goal that they have added to cart. Optimize, you can actually have up to 10 objectives per experiment. So I'm going to add a few more. One that they actually placed that order, and another that they signed up for my newsletter. Then I'm going to look at the targeting function. So the first step here is the URL equals. This is just the URL where the test is being launched. So this is the homepage of the Serene Sierras website. The next part, though, GA audience lists, this is where the magic happens. So I have an audience list here that I've called chair lovers. And this is just a segment that I built in Google Analytics that says that somebody has been to the chair page at least 3 times, but they have not added to cart. So now as soon as somebody qualifies for this audience, the next time they go back to our homepage, they're going to see this new experience that life is busy, take a seat. Just to take that one step further. So this is Light in the Box, big online retailer. let's say I come to their website and I'm searching for digital cameras. And I've looked at a few different digital cameras. I might have even added one to my cart, but I have not checked out. So in Google Analytics 360, we have a report, I mentioned it earlier, called Custom Funnels. And here I can build a custom funnel that analyzes this cart drop-off. So I can see that a lot of people came to my website, and a lot of them even looked for a digital camera, and some even added to cart, but virtually none actually checked out. So the coolest thing about this report is that red button, that red arrow down at the bottom. When you click on it, it actually pops up a message. And it says, hey, there were this many people that fell off at this step. Would you like to create a segment and remarket to them? Well, yes, I would. I would like to bring back those people who fell off, who didn't actually check out after they added to cart. And when I bring them back, my remarketing message is probably going to have some kind of an incentive on it, right? I want to incentivize them to come back and to make that purchase. So I'm going to run some ads, and my message is going to be get free shipping on your next order. Then when they come back to my website, I now know this information about them. I know that they've added to cart and they dropped off and that I've remarketed to them. I can use that same audience information and optimize to tailor that experience when they come back to the website and bring that messaging back through this experience to remind them on the website that I know who they are. I want to welcome them back and offer them free shipping. Probably with a better version than this very quick mock-up I made. So make it look a little nicer. But you can carry that messaging all the way through. So this is tying remarketing to your analytics site, to your analysis, to actually personalizing an experience for someone. So now, as you can see, we have a lot of customers. We're able to segment them into different groups. And we're going to use that information now to serve them different experiences because not all of your customers are the same. So talked about several things today. We talked about what is analysis to drive CRO, 5 tips for accelerating CRO via analytics, my bonus tip of a rapid optimization plan, and then what we see as the future of testing, adapting, and personalizing. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Krista. Does anyone have any questions? And in the meanwhile, I'll let Cornelius set up his laptop.
Yes, I think we have some mics here. Somebody want to? Yeah, that's a great question. I think that has a lot to do with when you are serving them a survey and how many questions are in that survey. So these are just little pop-up surveys on the site. So they're on your site, they do a certain action. I would usually target that survey only after they've done 1 or 2 page views to know that they are not just on my site by random. And on the top of it, it'll actually say how many questions. So like question 1 of 2 or 1 of 3. The more questions you have, the less likely it is that somebody's going to fill out that survey. So keep it short and simple and really get to the information that you want to get from people. Yes?
You're talking before about using optimized 360 personalisation.
Mm-hmm.
Are you running tests every time you're running that personalisation? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so it's synonymous when you're running a test. That is how you are targeting and personalizing that experience. The difference would be if you want to personalize it for everybody in that audience, you would just target 100% or 99% of that audience. You can change the percentage of people that you're targeting. I would recommend at least a 1% holdback so you can see the impact of it. But yeah, it would just be the weighting of that experiment.
Yeah, we're having a conversation today. Sorry, my name's Sam from Suncorp, around testing and personalization.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, when you think about building a program, what that balance is of your test stuff, like your call to action testing, maybe your image swap out testing,
Yep.
versus your smarter stuff like your welcome back personalization.
Yep.
What's your thoughts around, thinking about a program? What's that balance? What's that weight that you should be looking for? Is it just a maturity thing that we should all eventually evolve to that personalization so the more tactical stuff will no longer be apparent? Or yeah, what's your view?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I do think it's somewhat a matter of evolution, getting to that place where our first thought is how can we personalize this experience? I don't think that means that there's never going to be a case where you're going to want to run a simple A/B test. I think that there's a lot of value in A/B testing or multivariate testing. So I think it's a balance and the maturity of the business. But also, when you are running a personalization, you can target it to a very specific audience. So in this case, the only people that would see that welcome back, get free shipping experience are people who had previously dropped out of my funnel and come back through that remarketing campaign. So it's going to be a very, very small portion of my traffic. I still have a lot of other traffic that I could be running regular A/B tests on.